What is up, everybody? We are rolling on over here today on episode 6 of the Hodder Show. I hope you are having an awesome week so far. Thank you so much for tuning in. You are awesome for hitting that play button. I really hope you guys enjoyed my last episode, the Daniel Bryan tribute episode. Got a lot of messages in that from people who were really psyched on it, and who potentially want to see me hear me do more wrestling related podcasts. Obviously that's cool for me. Got a few new followers in that who are into wrestling, and that's awesome. And anybody who, if you're digging what you're hearing, feel free to go ahead and give the video a like or comment. Let me know you're digging it. Let me know if you're agreeing with what I'm saying. I always love talking to you guys, whether it's on the video directly, Facebook, Twitter. I did a lot of Twittering this past Monday, doing Monday Night Raw, and seemed to go over pretty good. So that's awesome. And I want to try and get more into that kind of thing. So if that's something you guys would like to do and kind of be a part of, then please feel free to tweet me literally anything and any time. We'll get a little bit of some Twitter banter going. You guys listen to a podcast and you have an idea for something, shoot me, go ahead and comment on it. If you guys have a podcast you'd like to hear me do, man, send me all your suggestions, anything at all. I would love to hear them. So we're talking bands today. Now, when I say talking bands, what I'm referring to is the fact that I'm going to sit here today and I'm going to do something I've never done before. And it's a very, very hard thing for me to do. And that's give you guys a official, quote-unquote, top 10 of my all-time favorite bands who either had a profound influence on me, either musically or in my personal life, bands who I just always find myself listening to no matter what, bands that inspired me to pick up a guitar or to write or things like that, or just bands that I just love as far as their style and their music and that kind of thing. So this is, like I said, a really hard thing for me to do because I have so many bands that I love. I was going to do a top 20, but I said, you know what? No, I'm going to challenge myself and maybe make this a little interesting. I'm going to do a top 10. And that's what I did. And as far as starting off here, I'm going to start at number 10. I'm going to work my way up to number 1. So hopefully there's some bands on here you guys like. If you guys agree with anything that I have on my list or have anything at all you want to comment about or anything, please feel free to comment as we go along here. So starting off at number 10 for me, as far as my favorite bands of all time, I have Lamb of God. Now, that may surprise a lot of people. If you went to high school with me and knew me in high school, you knew how much I used to talk smack about Lamb of God and quote-unquote death metal bands and so forth, even though Lamb of God are not really a death metal band. And what separates all that and everything is something we'll get into another time. I don't know why I used to hate on them so much. I think just I was not into the whole screaming vocals and that kind of thing. I heard a couple of their songs and thought it was so negative sounding, and I'm just like, man, I am just not into this. This is just not really for me. And it wasn't really until I grew up a bit and went through some stuff in my personal life that I kind of went, wait a minute. I get it. Metal music and heavier metal music. Obviously, at the time, I was into bands like Metallica and, stuff like that. But I said, heavier music and stuff like that, it's not always necessarily meant to be taken in the way it's perceived. And it wasn't until I heard Lamb of God's album Resolution, and a couple tracks off there, that I really realized that. I heard a song like Ghost Walking, and I was just like, man, like it's got a great groove. It's got a good story flow to it. Like, this is a really good song. And I heard Walk With Me in Hell, and I got it. I was like, he's not literally saying, hey, take hold of my hand, for you're no longer alone, walk with me in hell, meaning, hey, like, let's go to hell and have a party. Literally what he is meaning, as far as how I take it anyway. He is literally saying, hey man, you and me are both at a really shitty point. We're both in hell, quote unquote. But give me your hand. I'm gonna lift you up, and we're gonna fucking get through this, and let's do this. Put your fists up. And that's how I took it at the time, and that's how I continue to take it. And it wasn't until also I heard off of Resolution, I heard King Me, which people who know that song know that was a really unique song for them. And for some reason, I still to this day don't really know why, but about halfway through the song, when the song starts really picking up into the bridge, I had tears running down my face. I have no idea why. It was the weirdest thing. To this day, I still don't quite get it, but it was what it was, and that song hit me in such a way I will never forget. A lot of songs off that album just struck a chord with me so much more than any of their other stuff ever had, and that's why, as far as going along with my top 10, I'm going to pick an album from each band that I recommend you guys check out if you've never heard the band or this album. That's why I'm picking Resolution as my album pick from Lamb of God. I mean, you really can't go wrong with any of their stuff. Sacrament is also an awesome album. I love that album. And their new album is, oh my god, Storming Jang, or whatever, however it's pronounced properly, is just, oh my god. I almost picked that one for this list, but because of the impact Resolution had on me, I had to go with that one. So if you guys aren't fans of Lamb of God, I highly recommend checking out Resolution. And I can pretty much almost guarantee you, if you're not a fan, you will be after hearing that album. So continuing on with my list here, at number 9, we have kind of a controversial spot for this band that I'm sure some people who know me and knew me in high school and stuff might have something to say about it. They might be like, man, you like this band so much more. But as far as where I'm at now in my life, and as far as how often I still listen to this band, I had to place them at this point on the list, and that band is Metallica, the metal legends themselves. And like most male teenagers, first time I heard Metallica was an experience, I will say that the least. I remember I heard like some of their earlier work, and I mean, I was like, okay, it's really fast, and okay, like, I get it, it's alright, I guess, and wasn't really a fan of it. Just, I don't know why, for some reason, I didn't really do nothing for me. But, I will never forget this moment. I was up in Cape Breton, actually, at my grandparents' house. And I don't know, was watching TV, and for some reason, it was on a music video channel station kind of thing. And I'm sitting there watching it. I don't remember how old I was or anything, but this video came on. And it was, kicked in, and it was this really cool video. This guy walking around with this big coat, and it was snowing, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And it kicks into this song that just, oh man, like, it kicked my ass hard. The words and everything, and the guitar tone, and I was like, what is this? And I watched the video, I watched the whole thing all the way through, and at the end of it I saw King Nothing, Metallica, Load, which is definitely my favorite Metallica album, which may surprise some people. A lot of people usually go with, the Black Album, or Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning. Don't get me wrong, I love all those records. In my opinion, Metallica's never made a bad record. whether it was Saint Anger, which I actually liked, Load Reload, Death Magnetic, which I loved as well. Never been a bad album in my opinion. And there's another reason why Load happens to be my favorite, and that is because my favorite Metallica song is actually on there. That song is Until It Sleeps, which is, it's an amazing song, melodic, lyrics that are deep and personal, and it's got one of my favorite Metallica riffs in it, if not probably my all-time favorite Metallica riff, and it's in the chorus. The chorus, it's kind of one of those riffs you don't really, some people all say that, and some people go, what riff are you talking about? And it's not really a riff you really hear. It's not so much in the forefront, it's more kind of in the background, kind of like a harmony riff. And it's, hang on a sec. Alright. Figured I grab my acoustic guitar real quick here. Hopefully you guys can hear that okay. I told myself I would never do this in podcasts, but that riff I'm talking about, if there's some people who don't know it, I'm going to just play kind of just a quick version of it. Basically the riff, obviously it's distorted and everything, but this is that riff I'm talking about. Yeah, that's the riff. Just so you guys know. Just in case anyone was like, man, what riff is he talking about? That's the riff. The first time I ever heard that song, heard the chorus, and heard, James's vocals over that, I just went, holy shit. This is, oh my God. Not to mention, I've always kind of been more into more melodic music, even though I do love heavier stuff. So hearing Load, I just went, holy shit. But there's some really good stuff on Load. So much good stuff. Bleeding Me is an awesome, awesome song as well. Especially the bridge that kind of has that little instrumental part, the riff. It's like one of the heaviest riffs I've ever heard. And it's such a melodic riff. I'm not going to play that riff again, but such an awesome album, such an awesome band. I love Metallica. Now continuing on with the list here, at number 8 I have a band that I'm kind of new into them. The next couple bands are bands that I really got into more the last few years, and this band being Crowbar. Crowbar is my number 8. What to say about Crowbar? I love Crowbar. Kirk Winstein is, he's an amazing songwriter, guitar player. I love his vocal style, his gritty, I can't do it, but just how it's still very melodic, but it's just powerful, and their style of, slower kind of sludge metal and that, they're basically Kirk's was the inventor of sludge metal and or the pioneers, I guess. Just, it hit me. I heard All I Had I Gave, and it kicked me in the ass so hard. Just that riff, that I was like, what the fuck is this? And then the chorus just all I had I gave, and I'm just like, oh fuck, like, oh man, I was like moshing in the store when I heard that. I was like, oh shit, I'm getting pumped about just thinking about it. So obviously I went back and listened to their entire discography, because if you know Crowbar, they've been around since the 90s. And I was really happy that around the time that I got into them, actually, Kirk, who, the riff lord, Kirk Windstein, who also played guitar in Down, if you guys know Down at all. Right around the time I really started getting into them, he actually kind of left. He left Down to do Crowbar full time, and that was awesome. You know, I was so pumped for that. Unfortunately, when they came to Toronto, it was sometime last year. Unfortunately, I did miss them. I really wanted to go, but I had to work. I was so pissed about that because like it was, you know, I know that Kirk does all the merch and stuff, and like the VIP tickets are like not even very expensive, and I was like, oh, like I wish I could have met him, but an awesome band. As far as my favorite album from them, I have to go with Sever the Wicked Hand, just because when I got into them, that was like their latest album, so I really dug that album. Crowbar's like a fine wine, you know, as they get older, as Kirk gets older, it's like he's just getting better at everything he does. Their last album was just amazing. Symmetry in Black is amazing. I almost picked that album, but Sever the Wicked Hand, just I feel that that's the album I keep going back to that album. Obviously, I keep going back to the self-titled Crowbar album as well. Not to mention Obedience Through Suffering. Basically, every Crowbar album is amazing. They never made a bad album, but I always find myself going back to Sever the Wicked Hand just because of how it's just, you know, there's every song on that album. I love every song on that album. So it's really a great album. I highly recommend you guys checking it out, and I recommend going back and checking out their self-titled album Crowbar, because it's widely considered their best album. I consider Sever the Wicked Hand their best album, but it's all a matter of opinion, right? And that's exactly what this is. This is just my opinion on my top 10 favorite bands of all time. And people are going to disagree, but if you agree with some of my choices so far, right on. Go ahead and give this a like right now. Moving on here to number 7. I've got a band that's, what can I say about this band? Well, I love them. It's really hard to find words for this band because it's a band I got into a little late as far as they've been around for a while, and you know, I had heard some of their stuff before but wasn't really into it. I wasn't into the style. It's a band that some people are kind of surprised, like, wow, like you like this band. And that's because this band literally at, you know, the lowest point in my life, I heard this band and I went, holy shit. I heard their most famous song, and it just made me just kind of, like, screw this whole being sad and shit. Like, I gotta pump my fist and fucking go get life, you know? And that song is I Will Be Heard by the band Hatebreed. And Hatebreed has so many songs that I love. I mean, I would consider them like some of my favorite songs ever, which would be a much harder list to make. Hatebreed is a band that, you know, like I said, kind of at the lowest point in my life, you know, I was like, man, like, I heard certain bands, and Hatebreed was one of them that I got it. I understood finally, you know, I went, wait a minute, this Hatebreed and, you know, some of their lyrical content and stuff, he's not, you know, Jamie Josta, the frontman, he's not necessarily talking about literally song like Destroy Everything, you know, destroy everything, destroy, obliterate what makes us weak. He's not saying literally, let's destroy everything in the world and friggin' cleanse this world with flame, you know, like, he's not saying, hey, let's burn the world. He's basically, what he's saying is anything in your life that makes you weak or that makes you unhappy or depressed or any of that kind of stuff, destroy it. Fuck it. You know, that's what he's saying. And I mean, that's how I take a lot of their stuff. And he has certain songs. This Is Now is like one of my favorite songs. Every time I hear that song, it's amazing. If you need to be pumped up for any reason at all, you go listen to This Is Now. And same with I Will Be Heard, and yeah, people are like, oh, it's great pump up music. Yeah, but also a lot of people don't pay attention to the lyrical content, and they should, because Jamie Josta, he's an amazing lyricist. I don't know if he gets a lot of credit for that, but he writes a lot of great, really empowering songs. I don't even know if he necessarily does it on purpose all the time, but he sure as hell inspired me. And their latest album, The Divinity of Purpose, was same thing, kind of the time I got into Hatebreed. It was just around the time that album came out. It was actually, this album maybe came out a little bit after I got into them, but I heard Divinity of Purpose, and I heard, Put It to the Torch, Dead Man Breathing, Honor Never Dies, and I just went, holy shit, like, yeah, Jamie Josta himself describes it as, oh, it's caveman music, dun 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 dun, but there's passion there, and there's drive, and this energy that you get from it, and it's amazing. I love Hatebreed. I always say I will fight for Hatebreed, okay? Like, it's just, I don't even know, the second I hear Jamie kind of do his, like, it just, I can't. it gets me pumped up. It's just absolutely pumped up. And if you guys have never heard Hatebreed, I highly, highly recommend listening to The Divinity of Purpose, which is my favorite album from them. And even going back to The Rise of Brutality, which is like my second favorite album from them. Just amazing stuff. They have so many good albums. Like, again, they never made a bad album. Their earlier stuff obviously is a little more hardcore than kind of their later stuff that's a little more like kind of hardcore crossover thrash, But amazing band. I highly recommend you guys check them out. I really do. And moving on to number 6 is a band that, again, I make it sound like I went through this like horrible period in my life, and I really didn't. It's just basically, I went through kind of a patch where I was sad just because of a breakup and shit, and all my buddies were away at school, and so it was kind of a weird point in my life, but I quote unquote went through some shit, and just bands like Lamb of God and Hatebreed really helped pull me out of that, and also this next band, Five Finger Death Punch. I love Five Finger Death Punch. Anyone who talks shit about Five Finger Death Punch, I don't get it. Because they're just amazing. I can't do it. Again, they've never made a bad album. Obviously their first album was very angry. Way of the Fist, it was just fucking angry and brutal, and, the bleeding, and just, Devil's Own, so many awesome songs on that. And that was the first album I heard. I spent many nights in my buddy's garage, drinking and hanging out with some of my buddies, just blasting The Way of the Fist over and over and over again. That is an amazing album, and that's really why I fell in love with the band, was just, again, the energy. Was some of the lyrical content kind of negative? Sure, but it was the way it was being presented, And then they released their next album, War Is the Answer. And at first I saw it and I'm like, man, like, really? Is that what they're actually saying? And then I heard the song, War Is the Answer. It's just, him literally saying to somebody, motherfucker, war is the answer when it comes to you. And I'm like, oh shit. Everyone knows someone that they would want to start a war with, let's be honest. And that album has some great songs, some more melodic songs, songs like Dying Breed, and just, it was a great album. And then after that, they came out with an album that really kicked my ass, the hardest probably out of all their albums. I mean, Way of the Fist kicked my ass as far as the first time ever hearing Five Finger Death Punch. You're just like, holy shit, like, It's like hearing Pantera for the first time. Basically, I really consider Five Finger Death Punch like our generation's Pantera, as far as really being a big gateway band, a band for all young males who are, filled with testosterone and they don't know what to do and they're angry and they hear Five Finger Death Punch and they go, fuck yeah. It's, obviously Pantera does a fine job being Pantera, don't get me wrong. But as far as our generation, and I think that's one reason why I love Five Finger Death Punch so much. Their latest album is amazing. It's just a killer album. Got Your Six, as well as the double album they did is amazing. Lots of awesome guest spots. It's actually kind of a quick story. I was listening to Wrong Side of Heaven, Right Side of Hell, and I was listening to it all the way through driving somewhere. I don't remember where I was going. And I got all the way through the thing. And there's a song on that record called Dot Your Eyes. Awesome tune. It's heavy. It's just a great tune. And there's 2 versions of it on the album. And I didn't know this. I didn't really pay attention when I downloaded it off iTunes. And I'm listening to it. It comes on again, and I'm like, oh, this must be an alternate version. And I'm listening to it, and I'm rocking out hard. It's a great tune, a lot of groove to it. And it comes into the second verse, and I'm like, oh, this is my favorite verse. And all I hear is that famous Jamie Josta kind of yell that, "Ah!" And he starts into, "You're just a trend. It's gonna end." I had to pull over. For like the only time in my life, I had to actually pull my car over because I couldn't. I was like rocking out so hard. I was freaking out. My blood was pumping. I was like, holy shit. Because I did not know he was going to be on the record. And it's one of my favorite bands of all times with one of my favorite bands of all time. What's not to like? It was amazing. That's a moment I will never forget. I couldn't drive for like 10 minutes after that song was over. I was just like, oh, I felt like I could literally take on the entire world at that moment and do a pretty okay job. You know what I'm saying? But American Capitalist, I heard Under and Over It off American Capitalist, and I'm like, holy shit, it was a radio song. I heard that song on the radio so much, and I'm like, man, it's screaming with Ivan's famous, clean scream kind of voice that he has. He always goes back and forth. And it's lyrical content. It's real, And the video was awesome, They had they're playing guitar in the pool and there's all these strippers and they're making it seem like it's this big thing that this big Hollywood band, and it's just and they basically just give it the finger. I'm like, all right, that's cool. And I heard Remember Everything, and I just went, holy shit, that song that's as real as it gets. Ivan Moody is one of my all-time favorite lyricists. His stuff is as real as it fucking gets. And that's just the bottom line on it. And moving on to number 5 is kind of a doozy for me. My top 5 was impossible to pick. As far as the top 5 bands are really easy, it's the positions. So basically what I did was go with bands as far as how often I still listen to them and their newest stuff, how much I like it, compared to how much I used to listen to them and how much of an impact they had on my life. And this next band had probably one of the biggest impacts on me as far as musically, wanting to really pick up a guitar and write and that kind of thing. And that band is Seether. Some people might be surprised they're this low on the list. They're not in my top 3, but like I said, this was a really hard list to make. I find myself not listening to Seether as much as far as their newer stuff. It's not that I don't like it. I just find that they are going more melodic, which is not a bad thing. I do love their newer stuff. Their last album, I love it. It's really great stuff. It's just I find as I'm getting older, I'm getting into more heavier stuff. And there's still some, great stuff on that album. I find myself listening to Save the Day Save Today, excuse me, all the time, and Words as Weapons, and there's some great stuff. But as far as going back, I've spent probably a good year obsessed with Seether, maybe even longer than that. Obsessed with Seether. Karma and Effect is one of my all-time favorite albums. It's definitely in my top 5. Some amazing stuff on that album. I can't even pick a favorite song off it. Just amazing stuff on that record. I still find myself listening to that record the most out of all their albums. And also One Cold Night, which was a live acoustic record they did, and also it was like a video they did. There was a performance. That I listened to that record so much. And I watched the DVD so much. My one buddy Garrett can attest to that. We watched it a lot together. And it was just amazing. Just incredible stuff. Sean Morgan is definitely one of my all-time favorite lyricists and frontman vocalists, as well as guitar playing. Like, he's a great riff writer. Some of my favorite riffs are either riffs. I don't have enough good things to say about him as far as just how his lyrics and that affected my life, especially when I was an angsty teenager, I love Seether, and I highly recommend going back and listening to all their stuff. All their stuff is amazing. They never made a bad record. Just all of it's amazing, amazing stuff. Moving on to number 4 is probably one of the best live bands I've ever seen, as far as the raw emotion, the passion, the performance itself, the perfect set list and that. Like, just these guys were absolutely amazing. Definitely in my top 5 as far as bands I've seen live. They're number 4 on my all-time favorite bands list. Picking between the number 4 and number 3 were literally impossible. I basically went with the band I've liked and been obsessed with longer for number 3. And the number 4 band is Sevendust. Anyone who knows me knows I love my Sevendust. Sevendust is like one of the bands. People be like, "Oh yeah, Sevendust. Okay, yeah, I know Praise." And I'm like, dude, go listen to their stuff, because yes, Praise is an amazing, amazing song. Animosity was an amazing album. It's considered their best album. But holy shit, they have so much better stuff in my opinion. You go back to even their earlier stuff, the self-titled Sevendust record is heavy as shit. Listen to Home. As far as like single note, single string pulsating kind of riffs and stuff like that. I hear a lot in modern metal and stuff like that. I say to band, like, you guys like Sevendust? And they're like, we don't really know who Sevendust is. I say to them, you guys should go back and listen to it. And a lot of them will come to me and be like, dude, like, they were doing this kind of stuff back then. I'm like, yeah. If Sevendust released Home today in a more modern style and sound, I think it would get over huge. But one of the reasons why Sevendust is my top number 4 and one of my favorite bands of all time is actually because of Clint Lowry, who is the lead guitar player or songwriter, and also he does a lot of vocals. I'm basically obsessed with Clint Lowry in a very unhealthy way. I don't know what it is, just his lyric writing, his guitar playing, his vocal style, it struck such a chord with me when I first heard it. Obviously, Lejean, the frontman, is amazing. He's one of the best vocalists of all time as far as I'm concerned, especially in the metal world, as far as his clean voice to his kind of rough voice is amazing. Morgan Rose is one of my favorite drummers ever, and he's also one of my favorite screamers. His scream is so unique. They call it the crow. It's just, if you've never heard Sevendust before, you need to go listen to them, because they are amazing. Especially, I find the album that really best entails when someone says, well, what's an album you'd recommend? My favorite album from Sevendust is Cold Day Memory, which was the first album they did with Clint back in the band after he was out of the band for a few years. And they released some amazing records in that time as well. Seasons was a record they made right before Clint left. That's an amazing record. I jokingly call it instead of seasons, I call it LeJean and Clint harmonize because the whole record, there's all these awesome harmonizations, and it's a great, great record. One of their biggest songs, Enemy, was off that record. After that, they made Next. After Clint left the band, it's an amazing record. Ugly is on that record, which is one of my all-time favorite Seven Dust songs. It's probably like my second or third favorite Seven Dust song, actually. Like, I really love that song. And then they made Alpha, which is one of the angriest, heaviest records I've ever heard in my life. Then they made Chapter 7, Hope and Sorrow. Amazing record. Then Clint came back and they made Cold Day Memory, which is, I think it was because, I was really getting into Seven Dust. I was already into Seven Dust, but as far as I heard rumors of Clint coming back, and I was just like, holy shit, like, this is a big deal. And they released the song Forever. And I just went, holy shit, like, Clint's back. And then I heard Unraveling, which was actually a John Witherspoon penned song as far as lyrics. And I just went, okay, like, that's amazing. That's amazing stuff. Songs that have all three of them doing their vocal styles. Clint has a really nice, clean voice, but also he's got this really good, like, almost death metal style, low scream. Morgan has his crow style, and LeJean is LeJean. Got songs like Splinter, which is the first song. It's got all three of them doing their thing. You've got songs like Forever Dead, they all do some stuff. As well as the last song, Strong Arm Broken. Clint kind of does the chorus. It's just this strong, it's like this low, just it's great stuff. It's really great stuff. If you guys haven't checked out Seven Dust, out of probably honestly all the bands out of this list, and this is a bold statement, if you've never really heard Seven Dust, more than one or two songs, for God's sakes, go listen to Seven Dust. All of their stuff. Go listen to it right now. Just go, okay? Pause this and just go and then come back. All right. Hopefully you've came back after I told you to go pause this and listen to Seven Dust. That was either the dumbest thing I've ever done or the smartest. Hopefully you like Seven Dust now if you haven't heard them. And you're welcome for turning on to them if I did. So moving on to my number 3. Which is a doozy for me. This is a band that I spent a long time obsessing with. Back in the day, they were a band that when I heard them, they kicked my ass hard, okay? I probably spent at least 2 years or 3 years obsessed with this band. And that band is Godsmack. Anyone who knows me knows I love my Godsmack. And they're one of the best live bands I've ever seen. I saw them in Seven Dust not that long ago, and it was one of the best shows I've ever been to. Just amazing stuff. Even if Sully was drunk halfway through the show, it was still great. Sully Erna is like one of my all-time musical idols as far as his lyric writing, his voice, his style. It's just amazing. Just amazing, amazing stuff. Shannon Larkin is definitely my favorite drummer ever. As far as his style and the way he does things, it's just amazing. Tony Rambalda he's one of the guys who he often gets credited with keeping kind of classic guitar solos in hard rock and new metal, and that around that time they came out, a lot of bands weren't doing solos, or at least classically styled solos, and Tony always kept that in, which was so awesome. Not to mention, Robbie, the bass player, he's just an amazing bass player. The first time I ever heard Awake by Godsmack, I can't. It just kicked my ass. Probably harder than anything's ever kicked my ass was hearing Awake for the first time. The song Awake, and then not to mention that entire album. I find myself going back and I will listen to that album from the very start to the very end. And I find myself doing that still all the time. They have tons of amazing albums. They're another band that I feel like they never made a bad album. But Awake has to be my favorite album from them just because of how much I still listen to it. Obviously, Faceless is their most known album with songs like I Stand Alone and Straight Outta Line, and that's an amazing album. I love that album as well. Their first album, the self-titled, is amazing. It had Voodoo on it, as well as Keep Away. And then they made tons of other awesome albums that I love. Their newest album, the latest album, is also amazing. I highly recommend you guys check it out. But if you've never really heard Godsmack before, other than I Stand Alone, I really highly recommend go, even if you just go on YouTube or something, go check out Awake from start to finish. You start off with Sick of Life, which is one of the coolest album intros I've ever heard, and you end the whole thing off with Spiral, which is amazing. That song is a journey. Just check it out. That's a band that still to this day I will go back and listen to and just go, man, like Godsmack is one of the best bands I've ever heard. And not much else to say about that. I could probably make a whole podcast on friggin' half these bands I've been talking to. This podcast has been going on forever, but I knew this was going to be a bit of a long one. But moving on to my number 2, which this was a hard one. Honestly, from like number 5 to number 2 was really hard. But this band, I have to pick them because of their lyrics, the music, how big of a change they made as far as from their first album to where they are now. Unfortunately, they are on hiatus right now, and I really hope they come back, but they may not. You never know. As far as influencing my guitar playing with how much I love baritone style guitars, tuning down heavier riffs and stuff like that, but still staying very melodic. One of my favorites, probably my favorite style of music of all time is heavy guitars, with melodic vocals, and I find this band does it best. And they can still get heavy, especially their first couple albums, If you go back and listen and you don't think some of that stuff is heavy, I don't know what to tell you, because that's some of the heaviest shit I've ever heard, and I've heard a lot of good stuff. And the band I'm talking about has definitely probably one of my all-time musical idols as far as his songwriting, his voice, the effect he's had on my life, in my personal life, and inspiring me to make music. And that man's name is Aaron Lewis. And if you know who Aaron Lewis is, you know who my number 2 is. And that band is Stained. Anyone who knew me in high school and who knows me pretty good will know how much I love Stained. All of their records are amazing. They have songs that have had more of an effect on me in my life than I could even count. Dysfunction, which was their major label debut. Some of the stuff on that record is some of the heaviest shit I've ever heard, but it's also some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard, as far as songs like Mud Shovel, Raw, holy shit, just tons of stuff, Spleen, there's all these songs that they're so good. Home, I can't even think of it. There's so many songs flooding in my head right now. 14 Shades of Grey was my favorite record from them for a long time. I love that record. Then they came up with Chapter 5, which is my favorite record. Some amazing stuff on there. I actually am listening to that in my car right now. To be brutally honest with you, literally, the last time I was driving in my car, I was blasting Chapter 5. I love that record. They released The Illusion of Progress, which was a pretty big sidestep for them. There was a lot of really, not poppy in a bad way, but very, standard tuned guitars and more rock kind of vibe to everything. Aaron Lewis, if you guys don't know, he's a big country guy right now. So I think that was kind of mainly his influence. He wanted more. It was kind of a bit more of an outlet for him. And there's some amazing, amazing stuff on that record. I love that whole record. But after that, they came out with Stained, their self-titled record. That was a return to their roots, their heavier stuff. And holy fuck. That record just, I can't even find the words. It is incredible. Front to back, top to bottom, track the whole way through. Just amazing, amazing stuff. Starting off with Eyes Wide Open, which is amazing. Not Again, which is like, that's one of the, like, it's one of the best songs I've ever heard. It just, there's so much great stuff on the record. If you guys have never really heard Stain before, other than obviously the hits, Outside, It's Been a While, songs like that, honestly, listen to Stained, the self-titled record, and you may be surprised at how some of it, like how heavy some of it is. Paper Wings, which is one of the last tracks on it, has some of the, like, the heaviest content I've ever heard in my life. Amazing stuff. And Mike Mashok, with his baritones and that, had a huge influence on me, but also Aaron Lewis with his acoustic guitar playing. When I was at the height of my whole wanting to be in a band and stuff, I basically wanted to be Aaron Lewis. I wanted a band that was like kind of like a heavy, hard rock kind of alternative metal band, and then me be like the front man who plays acoustic guitar and like just sings. And to a T, that's basically what I wanted to do. And actually, kind of a fun fact, the first song I ever actually learned how to play on guitar was a song called Excess Baggage by Stained. As far as the first song, I learned how to play from start right up until the end. And I, recorded myself singing and playing and stuff. Like, that was the first time I ever did that. And that's an amazing, I love that song to death. It's one of my favorite songs. And just, Aaron with his lyrics, like I said, had such a profound effect on me. First time I heard his stuff, I was just like, holy shit, like, this guy it's real as it gets. And that's why I love Stain so much. It's real. There's no bullshit happening. There's no, oh, well, we need to make this more of a radio song and this. No, there's none of that shit with Stain, okay? That's as real as it gets. And that's why I love Stained so, so much. But moving on to my number one, the big one, which unfortunately a lot of people through process of elimination are going to know who it is, because they're my favorite band, and I talk about it whenever I have the chance. But first, I'll just do a quick recap, because this is a bit of a long episode. And thank you guys so much for listening in. And listening through the whole thing. I hope you guys have enjoyed it thus far. I hope you guys, maybe some of your favorite bands was in this list, and hopefully you enjoyed listening to me talk about why I like each band and checking out some of the records I recommended. So starting off going with number 10, I had Lamb of God, and the record I had was Resolution. Number 9, I had Metallica and the record Load. Number 8, I had Crowbar and the record Sever the Wicked Hand. Number 7, I had Hatebreed with Divinity of Purpose, or The Divinity of Purpose, excuse me. Number 6, I had Five Finger Death Punch with American Capitalist. Number 5, I had Seether with Karma and Effect. Number 4, I had Sevendust with Cold Day Memory. Number 3, I had Godsmack with the album Awake. Number 2, I had Stained with their self-titled record Stained. And coming in at number 1, my all-time favorite band, Alice in Chains. Who could have seen that coming, right? What the hell can I say about Alice in Chains? It's not going to take another 30 minutes. Lane Staley is my god, as far as music is concerned, as is Jerry. Lane Staley is, without a doubt, my favorite vocalist. No questions asked on that. Just the uniqueness of his voice. First time I ever heard them was actually I have to thank Nickelback, who were like one of who were like my favorite band forever, and it's hilarious that they're not even on this list, but that's how it goes. Their Live at Home DVD. They covered "It Ain't Like That" featuring Jerry Cantrell. And I kind of went, no, what's this "It Ain't Like That" song? It must be a new song. And Jerry walks out on stage, and I'm like, man, who's this lanky, long-haired dude? And they start playing the song, and just, what the fuck is this? Jerry starts into it. I didn't know music could sound like that. I just went, oh, what is this? Like, oh my god. Um, so then, I looked up the actual version, and then that was the first time I heard Lane Staley, and I went, what? Like, what? And just from then on, that was it, man. Unfortunately, then I found out he had passed away a few years before, which obviously sucked, knowing that I was too late to hear. But I right around the time I got into them, about a year or two after, was when they announced they were going to make a comeback with William Duvall fronting them, and I love all Alice in Chains records. I love all their stuff. Their new records are amazing. I actually almost picked Black. Let me try that again. I almost picked Black Gives Way to Blue for my favorite Alice in Chains record, but I just because Lane had such a profound influence on me, I have to go with my favorite Lane Staley era Alice in Chains record, because it really truly is my favorite record. I go back and listen to that record almost weekly at this point. And that record is Dirt. If you guys have never heard Dirt by Alice in Chains all the way through, go listen to it. There's no excuse that you shouldn't. Even if you've heard Rooster and gone, I don't like that song, that's fine. I actually don't really like that song that much, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously I like it, it's Rooster, but like, it's definitely not one of my favorite Alice in Chains songs. 3 times I've seen them live. The third time we went, we actually left when that song started. I just said to Sam, who was so awesome that she took me, I said, hey babe, like we should get going. She's like, you don't want to stay for Rooster? I'm like, I've seen them play it twice, like obviously I love Rooster. It's a classic Alice in Chains song, but the song that did it for me, that just literally, I texted my buddy, Mr. Brandon Bowden. If you're listening right now, man, you'll know this moment I'm about to say. I was sitting at my computer, and I went through a phase where I was really into like unplugged and acoustic versions of songs. I don't know why I'm still like that. I still love that. But I was looking through a bunch of stuff, and I found Alice in Chains MTV Unplugged session, and I went, oh, cool. And I clicked on one of the videos, and it started into this song. And it had, without a doubt, the simplest riff I've ever heard in my entire life. To the point where I was almost like, really? That's a song? And then they kept going and going, and I'm like, holy fuck. Like, this is like hypnotic almost in a way. It's amazing. And they started into it, and just that riff, there was 3 guitars playing this riff. Jerry was playing it, Lane was playing it, and then they had another guy playing it with them, whose name is escaping me right now. And they're kicking into it, and the drums, and I'm just like, holy shit, like this riff. And I told myself I wouldn't do this. I've done it twice in podcast now, forgive me. But I'll just play this little thing real quick here to see if you guys can guess what it is before I say the name of the song. If you guys haven't guessed it, that song is Angry Chair. And I heard that song, the unplugged version, and I don't really still to this day know why. I think it was the whole idea behind it. I texted my buddy Brandon, and I'm just like, dude, like, I fucking love Alice in Chains. And then obviously hearing it on the album, it just, holy shit. It's like a bow, bow, down, just the drums and, oh man, that, and the lyrics and just how kind of messed up they were. And just, oh man, like, what, like, knowing that it was Elaine completely wrote that song, other than the solo, which was Jerry, and it has this ripping fast solo. And then I, kind of continuing on with that MTV Unplugged, I saw the video of them performing Wood, which, that at that point, knowing now that Lane was so heavy into drugs at that point, and performing that song, he performed it flawlessly. And the end of it, the kind of the last bit of the song there, there's a lyric as, "Am I wrong? Have I run too far to get home?" And as he sings that, he looks at the camera, and you can see it in his eyes. Like, it was like he was staring into my soul when he said that line. I just went, fuck, and I just kind of went, Jesus. Alice in Chains definitely are without a doubt my favorite band. They have to be. Jerry Cantrell, having the influence he has on my guitar playing, basically really, I played guitar when I knew about Alice in Chains, but he's really the one who inspired me to really, really pick up the guitar and actually play the guitar, you know what I'm saying? Obviously with, Lane with Angry Chair, like I, said before, and play the little riff in that. Playing that riff, being able to play along with the song perfectly. That was really one of the first songs I ever learned how to play along with note for note, and was like, oh my God, like I can actually play this song, and it was awesome. I could sit here literally, guys, for a full episode and talk about Alice in Chains. So I'm going to just kind of end this here. Just the only thing I really have left to say is just, like I said, if you guys have not really given Alice in Chains a chance, for the love of God, go give them a chance. Lane Staley era Alice in Chains is amazing. Just some amazing, amazing stuff. William Duvall era, I call it, Alice in Chains, is also amazing. Just go listen to all their stuff. It's so great. 7's is the band that I say out of this list, if you've never heard them before, to really check them out, because they're such an amazing band. But also, if you've, most people have heard Alice in Chains, but if for some reason you've only heard one or two songs, go listen to their whole discography, because there's an amazing, amazing stuff on there. As far as I'm concerned, they're my favorite band ever, and I think they're one of the best bands who've ever been in the world, okay? So anyway, that's gonna wrap this episode up here with my number one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it wasn't too long for you. Go ahead and let me know if it was. Hopefully I didn't ramble off too much. I tried really hard to stay on topic, but when you start talking about, especially me, when I start talking about my favorite bands and that, I'll go on for hours. So, like I said, hopefully it wasn't too much for you guys. And let me know if you liked the whole me stopping and playing a couple of those riffs acoustically. Let me know if you liked that, or if you hated it and thought it was the dumbest thing I've ever done. Let me know. It's something that I told myself I'd never do, but I did it, and it was kind of fun. So let me know if you guys dug that, and let me know if you guys would hear me do more episodes like this, where I do kind of like a top 10 type deal. Definitely would love to do these again. It's really fun to do. They definitely going to be longer episodes, but hey, it's if you guys enjoy it, then right on, man. That's what I strive to do.